Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanajali. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Guru Charana Padma Nipala Bhakati Sadma Domui Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Man Bhavatori Haya Krishna Prapti Hoy Yaha Hoyte Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittate Koriha Aikya Rana Koriha Mane Asa Prabhupada Shri Guru Charande Rati Ese Tamagati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Janme Prabhu se Divya Jnana Ride Prokatito Prema Bhakti Yahoite Avijavinasa Yate Tere Gaya Hara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanara Bandhu Lokina Lokera Divano Prabhu Kodadaya Deyamura Padataya Ebias Kus Vibhuvano Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. The lotus feet of our spiritual master is the only way to obtain pure devotional service. We bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes, fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. Oh, merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet, your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your precious lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Adiprusha, thank you for your morning bhajans again. Good morning to all the devotees in the temple room. Good morning, Hare Krishna. We're bowing down to Arjuna Prabhu and all the senior devotees, Adiprusha, and all the senior devotees on this call. Good morning, dear devotees. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class at the Bhakti Center, the weekend edition brought to you by the God Sisters. Good morning to my dear God sister, Venu Madhuri, Devi Dasi, Robert and Whiskey Das. Good morning to Ananda Bihari, the pioneer of transcendental nicknames. Good morning to Hamangi, Hare Krishna, Henry Prabhu. Good morning. We're bound down to Henry Prabhu, Hare Krishna to you. Good morning to India Evans iPhone. Good morning, Hare Krishna. Jamuna Jaya, the Queen of Smiles and Yoga Blocks. Good morning, Sadhvi Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna. Good morning, Sammy Long, Jai Jagannath. Good morning, Timothy and your beautiful family. Good morning, Hare Krishna to Trupti. Welcome. Good morning to William, aka Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Welcome back. We are so excited to have you back, William. Hare Krishna. Good morning to, let's see who I miss. We want to welcome everybody. And I want to say a big, big thank you, Jagannath Priya. Good morning, Hare Krishna. And thank you so much for giving class and sharing Srimad Bhagavatam class with us on such a short notice. Hare Krishna. And
Prabhu here.
Hare Krishna. So happy to have you. Okay, so dear devotees, we are live already. So Jagannath Priya,
Okay.
whenever you would like to start, thank you. And you are co-host, yes. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama Shloker Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantigam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I'm happy to be amongst all of you and grateful for this opportunity to serve. Many times, just 2 minutes before somebody has substituted for me. So I got at least a day's notice yesterday by, I think in the morning, by noon time I got to know. And I immediately accepted out of the sense that I need to repay my dues. But I'm happy nevertheless. I had time, so it's not a problem. But I must say that yesterday evening when I opened the shloka, actually it was late evening, I was pretty much shocked because the subject matter which is being discussed is part of my own journey and struggle, and I'm not so qualified to directly give lectures on it. However, because it is part of the journey of every living entity and including myself, I'll discuss it from a perspective of how a devotee can deal or see this aspect. So as I read the shloka, you will understand what I am trying to say. So we are reading from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, chapter entitled The Story of Pingala, text number 8. Yoshid hiranya abharanambaradi dravyeshu maya pralobhitatmahi upabho. Sorry, I'll repeat again. Yoshid hiranya abharanambaradi dravyeshu maya rachiteshu mudhaha pralobhitatma hi upabhoga buddhya patangavan nashyati nashta drishtihi. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A foolish person with no intelligent discrimination is immediately aroused at the sight of a lusty woman beautifully decorated with golden ornaments, fine clothing, and other cosmetic features. Being eager for sense gratification, such a fool loses all intelligence and is destroyed just like the moth who rushes into the blazing fire. Purport. Actually, women have the power to attract men through all of the material senses. Men become lusty by seeing the body of a woman, by smelling her fragrance, by hearing her voice, by tasting her lips, and by touching her body. However, the foolish relationship based on material sex attraction begins by seeing, and thus Rupa or form is very prominent in the process of ruining one's intelligence. This fact has been exploited in the modern times by huge pornography industries which prey on unfortunate men and women. The example of foolish moth rushing into fire and destroying itself is most appropriate in this regard, for one who becomes addicted to the momentary pleasure of sex indulgence certainly loses his power to understand the spiritual reality behind dull matter. A lusty person becomes blind and foolish through sex indulgence, and his soul is lost in the fire of sense gratification. This whole disaster can be avoided by taking seriously to the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his empowered representatives such as Srila Prabhupada have created a movement to save people from the dungeon of material life, and we should all seriously take advantage of this opportunity. Hare Krishna. So, as a principle, many times, generally I wish that those who are married and grihasthas, they speak on such subject matters because they are more apt to deal with these subjects than people like me who have a little bit more of a theoretical experience. But let us visit from the Shastric perspective more than the modern thought on it. See, the first thing we must understand, uh, these are instructions given by Krishna to Uddhava in a third person view, where Krishna is giving some instructions to Uddhav that one king had heard this from this person and so on. So, in the journey of life, we have different stages of consciousness which need to be dealt with. Rather, we have different stages of development of our mind and intelligence which need to be dealt with. All of them which are very, very important. It is not appropriate to measure one against the other. For example, as a growing person, we are subject to the influence of the hormones in the body. Because we are an embodied being, we are bound to do certain things at a certain age. Just like a child, an infant loves the lap of the mother. After a few years, that same infant wants toys. After a couple of years later, that person wants friends. Then the person wants an opposite, then the person wants education. It wants to learn, curiosity, and so on. And then it wants a life partner. And then it wants to even then move on further. It wants kids, and then after kids you want to still move on and give up everything and get rid of things. So at different stages of life we all need different things, and every emotion which comes in our journey is meant to nourish that stage. All we need to do is learn how to deal with the certain development of the body, its chemical compositions like the hormones, where you become aware that you are a male or a female, and then you start developing the feelings of attraction and sex life and so on. So when a person is aware of these emotions, he also understands that these are emotions which are necessary for my further development. When a person does not understand this subject, what he indulges is any rush of thought which comes. It is not just about the principle of attraction to the opposite sex, but any kind of attraction, a person just simply indulges because a person is not well learned, or he does not understand how to deal with these emotions properly. And therefore, if we have a holistic approach, we can understand that there are greater purposes for certain things in life, and we can actually channelize it properly. To clear this particular doubt, there is an interesting discussion which comes in the Bhagavad Gita during the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where when Arjun is trying to tell Krishna that it's so easy for you, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to simply keep telling that control your mind, focus your energy, focus your intelligence, but it is so difficult. I would rather control the wind. And then Krishna says at that time that you are impelled to do certain actions and you are unable to control because you are under the influence of lust, and because of your indulgence, your ability to see yourself distinct from the mind is weakened, and therefore control this urge. And when he says this, then naturally Arjun is feeling that this is now an impossible target which Krishna has given to achieve. I would rather kill the men on the battlefield, but to do this is almost impossible. And that is where later then Krishna tries to clarify that, my dear Arjun, please do not see this exactly only as an enemy, because earlier he says that this is the enemy of it's your enemy, but then it is just not in the constituent construction of that particular emotion. Let's say the principle of sex, it is not inimical, because Krishna is then saying in the 7th chapter, what does he say? Dharma aviruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava, that my dear Arjun, I am the kama, or the desire to acquire, possess in the And in the highest form, this calm is also defined as sex life. He says, I am that sex life, Prabhupada is translating. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. So this is an important aspect to understand. This is that which is not contrary to religious principles. I am that. Now further also Krishna explains a very, very important aspect. When we specifically speak of this particular verse speaks about the principle of lust and how it affects a living entity. I am trying to visit the aspect of lust on how it can be constructive. So basically, what lust is doing, what the principle of sex exactly is, it is a feeling where a person, many times in the deeper psychology, he feels alive, or he feels that sense of being and the sense of existence becomes strengthened a bit. That a person starts feeling some worth of his own existence in some way. It's a deep egoistic satisfaction also in that manner. So Krishna says to Arjun that I am the ability in man. Ability means that principle where you can accomplish anything. It's a very, very interesting verse. Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, text number 8. It comes just about 3 verses before text number 11, where he says, I am sex life which is not contrary. Just 3 verses before that, he says, Pranavaha sarva vedeshu shabda khe paurusham drishu, that I am the paurusha. Paurusha means the ability. Whenever we think we are able for something, we can do something, or we feel a sense of achievement, that principle is me. Now, for most people in this world, sex more than pleasure, it has become more of a principle where a person tries to kill one's loneliness or boredom, and so on. One of my close friend, when we were in our college days, I had just actually later when we had just started working. So I was already in the brahmachari ashram. So we would discuss this aspect of attraction to the opposite sex, because it was natural. We were very young, and that was the new fad of giving up the material life and trying to control our senses. So I would try to learn from him on how he tries to practice this principle, and he would try to learn from me that how I apply these principles in my in brahmachari life, and how a sincere person would try to deal with this energy. So he used to tell me many times that for most of the times, the indulgence of sex is more of a relief than an actual unique pleasure seeking opportunity. And why relief? Because then I used to study a lot on on trying to experiment or introspect on how the mind works. And what I found to lesser or greater extent was that whenever you are so bored, or you kind of lose a sense of purpose or lack clarity in life, and you get choked up, when the mind and intelligence gets choked up, or when you are engaged in situations of life which essentially drain your spirit, which do not nourish your soul, automatically those are the moments where the impulse for sex or lust, it gets aggravated. And it does not aggravate because you are seeking higher pleasures. It just gets aggravated because you want to run away, or you want to find an escape mechanism to get out somehow in some way from the non-exciting, boring, maybe routine, whatever situation of our lives. So when we see that, then sex in itself is no longer exciting. It becomes just a kind of a drug which you take for the sake of relief from the boredom. However, those very individuals, when they are involved in anything that is exciting, or where they feel their purpose is being achieved, automatically they are able to control those energies for those times. Now, when we first understand these things, then it becomes very clear that we need to have a life which has a strong sense of purpose and meticulously designed engagement where we are able to deal with this energy. So there are two ways. One is, first of all, you replenish your physical and mental energy on a daily basis, because if it gets accumulated, it wants an outlet, and the biggest and the strongest exhaustion of energy is through the sexual activities. So if your energies are getting exhausted through physical labor, in the sense that you do some services in a certain way, you exhaust your mental and intellectual capacity, so you do not have enough energy to deal with this enemy or this energy of lust which tries to overpower you. So that's one. Other is having deep spiritual practices or a deep sadhana where that itself is so satisfying that you do not need to seek pleasure elsewhere. So scriptures try to explain this particular principle in a very nice way. Now I would like to visit the Vedantic view of how this principle is dealt with. So we just have about 10 minutes, so I won't be able to go in detail, but in a super summary of this discussion from a Vedantic perspective, how the Vedanta Sutra and others deal with, it is very, very interesting. First of all, in one of the discussions, it is explained how the living entity is made up of 5 different layers of consciousness. So the first layer is the Annamaya Kosh, which then further to that is Pranamaya Kosh, then there is Manomaya Kosh, then there is Vijnanamaya Kosh, and then there is Anandamaya Kosh. So these are 5 layers. Now do not imagine 5 layers to be covered on top of each other in a physical way. Of course, if you have googled out something, so sometimes these 5 layers or 5 sheets of consciousness is depicted in that manner, but it's not exactly like that. But it is these 5 layers are interwound. It is one layer more stronger than the other. So in the lowest of all, the consciousness is only driven by gross physical matter, such as food and immediate sensual experiences. So that is called as Annamaya Kosh, where if you see something attractive, you want to possess. You hear something attractive, you want to possess. You taste something attractive, you want to possess. So it's all about owning, possessing, devouring, usurping, and all. It's like you just want it. So that is the Annamaya Kosh. Then the consciousness goes beyond that, where you feel that, okay, I can exist without these gross things, and I do exist, but I need the gross things to enhance the pleasure of my existence. So that is the Pranamaya Kosh, where you start feeling that you are different from the objects of pleasure. Then comes the Manomaya Kosh. So the living entity is evolving himself in trying to identify these koshas. He understands that if the mind does not support, then I am not getting any pleasure even in the existence of life, or even in the consumption of things for the sensory pleasures. So you start understanding that, oh, I have a layer of existence which is also at the layer of mind, which is more subtle and more at the substratum. Then you go a little bit higher, where you understand that if I can think about my mind, means my thought is greater than my mind. That means my intelligence is greater than my mind. My intelligence guides. And then you understand that, oh, at a subtle level, I am that intelligence. And furthermore, the one who is able to distinguish that there is a layer of senses, the layer of consumption, there is a layer of thought, there is a layer of intelligence. So one who is able to think of all of this, that person is beyond all these things Like if I say that, oh, I am intelligent, that means I am able to identify my intelligence. Then who am I? So though that particular discussion which comes in the Upanishad, basically, it tries to highlight that you are beyond all of this and you are the pure Brahman. The spirit soul is Brahman in nature, and by nature itself, the nature of Brahman is to be in pure bliss at all times. And because we are of that nature, it is very natural for us to chase pleasure, to seek happiness, to perpetually be in that state. We cannot negotiate to not be happy for some time. We cannot do that. It cannot be like, okay, Monday to Friday, I have been so unhappy. Sorry. So in the modern times, it happens that Monday to Friday, I'm so unhappy working for 5 days. So Friday night onwards, I'm going to blast out my mind intelligence and have my pleasure. Imagine the reverse way. Do you ever think that Monday to Friday I have had a lot of pleasure? Now Saturday, Sunday, I am going to work hard and drain my soul out of all pleasure and I just want pain. We never ever can think. You are not designed to think that because I have been happy for so long, now I want some misery. It is just not possible. But the reverse way also, nobody teaches you that. No parent, no school teaches that, oh, you have been exhausted, now this is the way you be happy. No, the feeling of exhaustion is natural, and the instinct to seek pleasure is natural. So we chase. The chasing pleasure is not something which is not part of our life. It is not unnatural. It is actually a very, very natural thing. Now, how to chase pleasure, how to get pleasure, and how to ensure that the pleasure which we are chasing does not consume us and does not weaken us. That is what is the science of Sanatan Dharma, or when we read Bhagavatam, we try to go to those levels, that meticulously try to deal with these things. So, by some kinds of sadhana, some yogic practices, even by deeper sense of chanting where the mind gets very absorbed in the holy name in a very conscious way, it is actually possible to deal with this kind of distractions. Now, but in the stage of practicing, like all of us when we are practicing, this kind of sadhana or practice has to be done on a daily basis. It may not be possible for the quantum of it. Let's say I am chanting 16 rounds. It may not be possible that for 16 rounds I can be fully absorbed. But I can tell you for certain by my own experience that even if throughout your time of chanting, if you can get just 5 minutes, even 5 minutes is a lot. If you get 2 or 3 minutes of chanting, that is just half a round. You get half a round where you are so absorbed and you feel the sense of your connection with Krishna, and you feel that you and Krishna or the names are just coexisting in harmony. If you get that level of absorption just for 2 minutes, that is enough for the whole week of your mind to be peaceful. Just 2 minutes. So many times I tell devotees, don't worry about this whole quantum of 16 rounds. Just focus on 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. And then sometimes, of course, it may appear very controversial. That's not my intention. I tell devotees, don't take the pressure to be absorbed and be chanting and hearing attentively for 16 rounds. Just do it for 1 minute a day. Just 1 minute. And see the difference. You will like it. You'll probably then want it to extend by 2 minutes, then maybe 3 minutes, and maybe 5, maybe 10. That's enough. Rest of the rounds you do with the pace which you can do. It's not possible that you can be fully 1.5 hours or 2 hours absorbed. Why? Because we have, as a conditioned soul, if you are at middle age of your life, you have so many other responsibilities just for the upkeep of your body and the circumstances around you. So those things will keep distracting. But the principle is the absorption or samadhi state, even if you do not get to that stage, one stage before of that, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, these are the final three stages of absorption. So dharana means able to concentrate on what you want. Dhyana means absorption in that concentration, and samadhi means you are totally lost in it. Even if you are not lost, if you can focus for 2 minutes, it will take care of all the wild energies which sometimes drive us crazy at a certain age of life. Now, this same principle, when it is not dealt appropriately at a certain age of life, when a person grows and becomes, like, let's say, is in the later stages of life, this same transformation takes place as the urge to be taken care of, some emotional support, and so on. It is the same principle. It just gets transformed differently. And this principle, although when it gets transformed, when it remains on the material stage, that means when a person just thinks that I need care and support from this particular person instead of Krishna, let's say, now this applies to someone who is who has crossed the stage of marriage life. So he is now at the stage of vanaprastha and beyond. For in such circumstances, where the entire mind and emotions have to be fully be nourished by the names of Krishna itself, but it seeks nourishment from yet these principles, then we should understand that this energy has not been dealt with properly at a certain stage of life. And therefore, in principle, I know I may sound slight jumbled up. I'm just trying to squeeze many things in this short span of time. In the beginning, I said that certain energies have to be dealt at certain age of life. If it is not dealt with, then at a later stage, it creates a havoc where you revisit to deal with those energies in a very or in an unnatural way, in an unnatural time, in unnatural circumstance. So rather than seeing the principle of sex purely as an enemy or something like that, one should see that this is it's an energy which is necessary for my mental and emotional growth, and I have to deal with it, engage with it properly and appropriately. That is the only and only way. There is no other escape from this. Krishna has designed this creation in a very meticulous way. So we have to respect it in that particular order for the sake of liberation. So just because you see an attractive person, male or a female, and you start criticizing, and there are some verses which come where Yamunacharya says, when I spit at the very thought of wanting to indulge. Now those are highly elevated stages where when they speak these things, they are not deriding the beauty or negating the energy of Krishna's creation. It is just that their sense of higher pleasure, their relishment of the higher pleasure has happened, and it is so active that now in the experience of the sexual pleasure and in the experience of the Brahman truth, they compare it that this is a very inferior energy. It is not theoretically, they are not saying it, they are saying out of practical experience. But when a person does not practically experience this thing, and superficially tries to impose these things on the mind and intelligence in a false sense of heroism and in a false sense of control on mind, and trying to be seen as a person who controls the mind and energy, and I'm a transcendental person, such a person is bound to 100% fall down, because that is the sheer disrespect of the creation and the energy itself. So rather, we deal with in a very humble way, trying to pray to Krishna that, my dear Krishna, I recognize that this force, this energy which you have created for the sake of liberation of embodied beings. And please guide me in the best way how I can channelize this energy in your loving service. I am incapable to deal with it with my own mind and intelligence, and I'm bound to misuse it. Please make sure that I engage with every mind, every energy, every emotion which you have given to me in the best possible way, in a way that it leads to my liberation and service unto your lotus feet. So that is the best way we can pray. So I'd like to stop here. Can we have some discussions or questions?
Jai Jagannath Priya, thank you so much for that. That was very, very helpful. Adi Purusha, do you have any comment? I know there's some devotees there, so please.
Yeah, we don't prepare comment, but we do ask Srila Prabhupada, please show us what to say. It's a wonderful class, perfectly explained. And I was reflecting on somebody I met years ago. He was traveling in Southeast Asia, and he said that as a student in the college, he was a pole vaulter. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
They have this big long pole, and then they run and they squeeze the pole and they jump over this bar. And he said, you're straining to get 1/4 inch more. And he said, when I gave everything I had, and was pushing myself as far as I could, at that point I would pray. And then I went to Oxford, and I learned all these intellectual things about prayer and scripture and everything. And he said, but it was in comparison to the experience of giving everything you've got and then really crying out to the Lord, I realized that was a different level. So when you talk about resisting the urge to engage in lower kinds of pleasure, if we don't fully, as far as we've heard from Srila Prabhupada, if we don't fully engage in devotional service, where I know whatever little space I leave when I'm not busy, when I don't have a service, it says in the scripture we should use our intelligence to overcome these lower urges. So we make a schedule, we have a program, we have an instruction, we have a service given by the spiritual master, and we want to give everything. We want to do our utmost, and that squeezes out other other kinds of activity we might be drawn to. At least that's my experience also. I have to really control my mind and senses by having something to do at every moment. What does it say? Ahaitukiya pratiyata. What's that verse, Prabhu?
Ahaituki apratihata.
Unceasing, unmotivated devotional service to Krishna
Yeah.
is the only way to satisfy the self. It's the only way we will be satisfied. And Maya is very tricky. She squeezed in there. You know, idle mind is the devil's workshop. You know, whenever I'm thinking other than service, then this other possibilities that occur. Anyway, this is a small contribution. I'm sorry to talk so long. But glory to Srila Prabhupada. Let us give our utmost. Love wants to give all.
Hare Krishna, very, very nice class. And I just will add as a Grihastha couple, Prabhu and I here, that, well, I'll just say that we barely knew each other, but Srila Prabhupada and Krishna made that arrangement that we make a life together. And we did get married under the Hare Krishna tree almost 28 years ago. And I will just say that when you have a good Krishna conscious husband, or if the husband has a good Krishna conscious wife, that together you have a perfect marriage in Krishna conscious, in serving the Lord and serving Srila Prabhupada. And I just feel, again, we knew it was a perfect arrangement. I was sitting on the stairs of at Krishna Balaram in Vrindavan, the Samadhi, where they were building Prabhupada's Samadhi back then. And I didn't realize it, but my husband, Brahmabhuta Prabhu, was approaching with a devotee, Kapindra Swami, from New York, who I had recognized. I didn't know who was following with him, but that's where I first saw my husband in Vrindavan, sitting on Prabhupada's Samadhi shrine stairs. And then we were to get married under the tree. Kapindra Swami performed that marriage, and I have made a service. We don't live in New York anymore, but I've made that service, which Kapindra Swami gave to me, of cleaning the tree. And we are back here, and Prabhu's service is the plaque. The city awarded us a plaque back in 2001, and Prabhu makes sure that the plaque is always readable. We've had one graffitied, which we have back in Cleveland, but we try to keep up with that, and it's just, yeah. I'm sorry, am I talking too long? Okay,
No.
I just want to add one more. The last time we were in New York, it poured and rained so hard, and I couldn't properly clean around the tree. And over all these years, of course, the cobblestones are very at different levels now, because the roots of the beautiful Hare Krishna elm tree has brought them up. But over the time, there's so much dirt that the dogs come, they, kick here and there, and there are like pools of dirt that are caked onto the stones. So yesterday, I was really, removing them with a nice chisel and just a nice stick that I found by the Hare Krishna tree. And I felt, as I kept removing this dirt and uncovering the cobblestones, it was such a cleanse for my heart. And again, just the beauty and the wonder of devotional service. And I will add one other thing. There were some devotees from Brooklyn Temple that came, and we did a wonderful kirtan. And they were like, "Oh, thank you so much for this service." I said, "But I am here only once in a while. Somebody from Brooklyn, anyone can take on this service and regularly clean the Hare Krishna tree, and just sweep all the dirt back in onto the roots." So we should always think that what can be our service to the Lord? What can be our service to Srila Prabhupada? So thank you. It was a very enlightening conversation, class that you gave, and thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hi. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, good morning to you and good morning to all.
Hey, are you volunteering, Prabhu, to clean the tree, Prabhu?
Not me.
Yeah, you were the first one on. Krishna just chose you, dude.
I'm there. Sometimes I hug the tree, but I want to give thanks to the Prabhuji, the one who gave us today. And I like you too, But such a nice class, and like Adi says, that the idle mind and free time, it's definitely forces to take something else into it's just gonna be fulfilled anyway in our life and by something else. So like being busy but also devotional service, it takes care of that, because I think that's a mechanism of mind, like we're talking about karma and all that stuff. That I like what you said, Prabhu, your friend, and how you guys made experiments that you observe that the mind, when mind is bored, that's the mechanism that it uses, the sex and everything else. That's the mechanism that it uses to fulfill that gap, that aspect. So if we control our mind and devotional service, like somebody says, the mind has to be beat up every morning and every night, something like that, the quote. Thank you so much, because, like you said, there's all those koshas. The Vedic view is very beautiful, Maya kosha and all that stuff. So true. Appreciate the class and thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you all for sharing. What a sweet love story that was. Sadhvi, Devi, Bhima, Nurtam, Nitai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for today. Um, I, um, I have 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. What I'm going to ask the question is for me to understand and to see if there is possibility, if there is something to help. When the both couple are having in the same mindset, which Mataji said, that's different. That is not so much difficult to really act on the way that pleases Krishna. But when there is a different mindset for both of the man and the woman, I have learned many times talking about the man is should be respected as a God, as a guru, and so on and so on. I have heard that many times. So if the man insisting in the activity where the woman doesn't want to, is it okay for the woman says, you know what, I'm not there, I don't want, I'm not in that mindset, either you stop or we divorce? Could the woman do that? Or do the woman has to stay and try her best? Thank you.
I'll try to answer, but since we are falling short of time, if we are unable to complete, we will discuss in the afterglow. Okay. So the first part of the man has to be seen as a god or a guru or a guide. That is subjective to the man being responsible himself. It is not that a blanket statement that because someone has a masculine body, so he has to be worshipped as a guru guide. That's not true. So most of these statements come when they come in the context that a person has understood dharma, means what has to be done and what has not to be done, and he has a reasonably controlled mindset. So the responsibility in a typical relationship, or let's say even throughout life, is more on the masculine forms in terms of protection, in terms of governance, in terms of guiding. Why? Because nature has given you a body which is suited for those kind of things. Whereas the women, the feminine roles in a natural biological way, the women are more suited to nourishment and the refined things, taking the way a feminine energy can nourish. Masculine energies cannot nourish that way. Masculine energies can give guidance and protection and so on. So when one understands one's natural arrangement, that because I have acquired these bodies, these are the natural tendencies where I can serve, based on that, then you are glorified. Then you are glorified as a man, as a guru, as a guide, and the woman has to be glorified as a devi. It's not just the man. So the woman is also glorified as a feminine energy, like Parvati, the pujas, the vrata, the so many austerities and religious rites are there. Even glorifying women as devis. Devis means the demigoddesses, like demigod. So in that way, so in that sense, they coexist and they respect and love each other. So we'll continue this discussion after the darshan. It's a very interesting question.
Dear devotees, please, if you can, turn on your cameras.
Purusham.
Okay, dear devotees, I think, Almira, sorry, did you have something? I muted you. I could unmute you. Just unmute yourself if you can.
I have a question, if I may.
Once again, we were just discussing Sadhvi Devi's point. Can we finish that first?
Yes, please, Prabhu.
Okay, so the first part of your question about males being glorified. So I just brought that in perspective. Both of them should understand their natural roles and responsibilities. An artificial argument of what is our role and responsibilities, who is right and wrong, there is no end to that if it is not rooted in the natural sense of our physical existence. So that's one part of it. Now, because I do not know certain specifics in the context of your question, so I may not be able to give a very specific answer to that. However, based on what you said, if the husband and wife are not in the same mindset, so if this is in the broader engagement of life, then there will always be a conflict at every small thing. Let's say someone wants to live with a spiritual perspective and someone only wants material things and absolutely no interest in spirituality, so the conflicts always increase. Personally, whenever I have tried to help in matters of not divorcing, my stance has always been that if the husband or the wife is not too abusive in the sense that there is physical violence and absolute when one of the person wants to destroy or disturb the other person in all other matters, if it is not consciously being done, then one should try to hold on to that relationship. especially when you already have kids and you have family and so on. Why? Because everyone is dealing with their own mind and energies at different stages. And personally, I have seen that every 5 to 7 years, the individual changes a lot because of hormonal changes. So someone who is kind becomes a bit cruel, somebody who is cruel becomes kind, and all those things keep changing with the stages of life. So if one is able to see that, then it's easier to tolerate. So unless and until the partner is consciously trying to harm the other person or consciously trying to disrupt, then there is no reason to separate. It's better to create your own space. Now when it comes to point of physical indulgence, which is also sometimes a very big conflict, that someone has a different expectation in terms of getting physically and emotionally connected. So those are things which both of them have to sit, and both need to come to a sense of a compromising state. Compromising in the sense that negotiate certain things, understanding one's age. So I know of people who try to artificially follow certain Krishna conscious principles, and they are just newly married couple and just 2 3 years into it, and then that creates a deeper strain and it creates conflict, and there have been divorces just because of that also. To such people, sometimes generally I say that you have to respect the age in which you are in, basically. So if you want to practice absolute detachment and being fully 100% Krishna conscious and no physical indulgence with each other, but you are a family staying together, you can do that after the age of 50, 55, 60, something. And that also has to be negotiated. It has to be decent enough in the journey of life, understanding that we are in the journey. Perfection does not come about out of just enforcing certain principles. It doesn't come like that. So it applies to both of them. So it's and both of them have to, as I said, if there is not a conscious abuse, then there is no point in leaving the relationship. It is better you stick on. What should be the grounds of separating? As I said, if there is a real physical abuse happening, a mental abuse where somebody is targeting, torturing a person, then one may think that it's better to separate. And that also better it is run through certain rounds of discussion, certain counseling, and so on.
May I come with the following question, please?
Yes.
To this, when you talk, because you just talk about to really fight with the sex indulgence and not to indulge in that unless what the Shastras teaching us. In Shastras teaching us that the only time you can do have this how to say intimacy is when you are planning to have a children, right? So does that mean that you can have it even if you don't want to have children?
No, that's not true. Now, when the Shastras speak like this, they speak that see, Shastras speak from the lowest to the highest. It gives all grades of engagement, and at each grade there is a growth. Shastras do not say that one should only indulge only when you want to have children. That is the most ideal way. That someone like say, we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam where certain rishis and those munis or those sages who are meditating in the forest, they recognize that the world needs a good king. Now these were the rishis and munis who come out of their tapasya or their forest, and then they go to the king and say, give me your daughter because I want to the world needs a bigger or greater king. And then they indulge in a physical pleasure, they impregnate them, and then you have a king who is born, who is very dynamic, and then he takes charge. Now these cannot be the examples for every ordinary person. We have to be extremely realistic. This is just not possible. This is for This is an ideal way. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam speaks all those grades. If we see Chitraketu Maharaj, he's a king of Satyuga, not of this time. He's the time when the first incarnation of Hamsa avatar and all those avatars appeared. So Chitraketu, he had 1 million, I know, he had 1 billion. I don't even remember, 10 million, I think 10 million wives. So Ayodhya, Naresh, Ayodhyapati, our Dashrath Maharaj, Lord Ram's father, he had 340 wives. So we see that there is a principle, there is an ideal principle that, okay, the best way or the most ideal way that I will only engage for the sake of children. But knowing that I am an embodied being, I have been coming, I need certain pleasures for my own life so that I can move forward, I can think clearly, I can take baby steps in my journey. So indulging in some form of constructive or a reasonable pleasure within the domain of marriage or legitimate relationship is not inappropriate. Now, just indulging because I'm feeling bored and unexcited and then trying to make it more, trying to just get into the physical pleasure, and because I'm not getting pleasure with now the same excitement with this partner, so I will multiply my partners, I will have many more partners, and then I will keep on experimenting within that. That's not an ideal state. However, as far as understanding of the principle of engaging in sexual relationships is concerned, or this pleasure is concerned, there are also subsidiary scriptures which mention about how one can have pleasures at different stages of life in different forms. So now those also are explaining how, they are not explaining how, that they are not guiding us to engage in this. They are saying that how different people of different classes, different, even in the human species, there are different grades of consciousness, right? So which class of people engages in which kind of physical relationship, in which manner, all those classifications are also given. Now, we do not want to discuss or engage in that whole elaborate discussion, but my point I'm trying to say is, from the highest standard to the lowest standard, everything is discussed and everything will coexist always. We have to see what is my urge. Suppose now there is a principle that one should only eat 50% of your hunger, then 25% should be filled with water and 25% of your stomach should be kept empty. How many of us can do that? We cannot do that. Every person has a different body, different need of the mind. They eat differently. That variety, that dynamism, that uniqueness will always remain in everyone. So the husband and wife, the couple, should sit together and understand that if we are married and we are under certain institutional guidance in the institution of marriage, I am saying, if we are in that particular principle, then there must be some give and take. So we negotiate with each other and we help each other. Then otherwise, what is the whole point of being together, right? The whole point of togetherness is we help each other physically, mentally, emotionally, and also that we may not be able to help to the greatest extent, like the full. But let's say I want 10 units of help, so I will expect my partner to at least give me 5 units of help. Now that can be physically, mentally, emotionally. And same thing, I'll negotiate. I cannot get 10 units, but I'll get at least 5. Same thing for her also. And I think you can also ask certain devotees who are much into the aspect of marriage. They'll be able to help more that way. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I believe it was Bhima and then Neurotemnitai. Bhima, are you with us? Okay, maybe we'll go to Neurotemnitai and Bhima.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Bhima. Bhima, sorry. Okay, Neurotemnitai. Yeah, well, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I really wanted to appreciate you, Prabhu. I you're bringing a lot of maturity from a devotional perspective, and I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to make one point, and that is there's a way to like read the Bhagavad Gita that I have found like where it's like more of a functional point of view, like verses 258, um, where you have like like a tortoise bringing the senses into the shell, or like 263, 264, how anger can make us lose our intelligence, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then 11:28 and 29, how moths going to a flame and rivers going to the sea. But I think like from that point of view, like if we're just like busy with our work and other things, it helps us to protect our Krishna consciousness. We can use it like arrows in a quiver, so to speak. While we're doing other things, we can quickly remember a verse and keep ourselves in control. I just wanted to state that, and then other than that, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Bhima, if
Haribol.
there we are. Hare Krishna.
Hey, wonderful, Prabhu. What particularly sticks with me is what you said. Needless to say, slightly excuse me, let me catch my breath. I'm always in the middle, in this morning, in the middle of physical activity. Okay, so what you brought about was a practical application of our consciousness pinned to Krishna, that just sit for 2 minutes. In the Bible, the Lord says, "Be still and know that I am God." And it's not something that we take a lot of time discussing amongst ourselves. It's not much of our philosophy. We do. Love is an action verb, they say. So devotional service is the development of love of God, and it requires action. But we should, what you said, Prabhu, was very encouraging, because sometimes, even especially when we're troubled, as the world will be troubling, if it isn't, then you better look behind you. Um, you're not going to sit down and pound out even a whole round. You're not going to sit there and just, artificially impose these syllables on your mind when you are burdened with some great test. But what you can do is for 2 minutes is to sit down and breathe and remember all these times we've been in Bhagavatam class, or all the times that we've heard that absolute philosophy, that endearing philosophy, that sheltering philosophy, that Krishna is with you at all times, and that he's there right then. And you don't need to crack the whip of your mind. You can just say, "Be still." And let us remember how have no fear. I mean, how many times, Masucha, how many times does Krishna say, "Have no fear"? So that was great, Prabhu. 2 minutes, 2 sincere minutes is worth more than 2 lifetimes of just following along, not knowing why. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima. I don't know if Ananda Bihari is still here. Sorry, Prabhu, I know we're past time.
Yeah, I'm here. I have a question for Jagannath, Priya, Prabhu. When we hear things like "give everything to Krishna," which Prabhupada has said, he also said things like just add Krishna to everything, which sounds a little softer, a little more accommodating to people who may be newer to our philosophy. And he also said that without Krishna, it's all just a bunch of zeros. And instead of getting rid of all the zeros, he was talking about adding Krishna to the streak of zeros. So what was Srila Prabhupada's way of explaining this Ahutuki Apratiyata application of devotional service? when we give something to Krishna, how did Srila Prabhupada define that? Do we lose something to gain Krishna? And what does it mean when we hear things like "give everything to Krishna"? How do we not get turned off and discouraged by those things? And I'd like to hear your take on how Prabhupada would dealt with those things. Thank you.
So your question is it just brings about a lot of emotions because see, when a pure devotee like Prabhupada or when we also hear sometimes Shukdev Goswami or those realized souls who have loved Krishna in a certain way and they have experienced, the practical experience of Krishna has happened and they are still in the physical body. So they themselves are undergoing a struggle. What is that? One is their heart is wanting to speak the experiences which they have had, and the other is they cannot speak that because the audience is not ready. So let's say for Prabhupada, how many kind of people is he going to come across like him where he can just share freely, like how Rupa Goswami wants to share something from his own heart at he'll have very few people. Now when those two great devotees meet, then they can speak each other and everything and so on. But when they are going to speak to conditioned soul, then they lower down their whole effort and come to the level of an ordinary person's struggle and life and so on. So there is always a spillover when a pure devotee is trying to give Krishna consciousness. So the spillover is such that they speak many things which are for the gradual upliftment of the devotee, but at the same time, sometimes their own emotion just spills over. So when that happens, that's when these devotees, all devotees, you'll see this, they'll say, give everything to Krishna, surrender. There is no point of anything of your material life. All that is meaningful is just this. So that is a spillover of their core heart. And that is not always. If you see the large part of Prabhupada's teachings, or when it comes to teachings, the large quantum of teaching is always the gradual upliftment. So what for us is relevant, what is relevant for us is keep on adding Krishna a little bit. I cannot just trash everything and just make it like that. Because, see, like for your own child, you cannot artificially tell your child that this particular toy is not as worthy as Krishna is. Or let's say if you give him $100 currency, a note, and you give him a toy, the child is very likely to pick that toy, which probably is just worth a few pennies or just $1. It has no value for that, and you cannot intellectually give that experience of what this $100 bill means. All it wants is that $1 ice cream which it can immediately lick and taste. So similarly, our own journey is like that. We are caught up in our own conditionings and own definition of things. We cannot artificially value the bill of Krishna, let's say, that 100%. We have to gradually go. And therefore, the Shanaihi verses are there, and many times Prabhupada says gradual upliftment, gradually one will translate, gradually. So that gradually means whatever my stage of bringing Krishna in my life is, I do that, and then I add just a pinch of inconvenience to myself. That let's say I can bring Krishna 1 unit in my life, 99 units is what I have defined. 1 unit I can give space. Now, what is the inconvenient part is to make it 1.5 units. So my hard work or my sadhana or my struggle would be only for that 0.5 units, not to replace 1 and just put 99. I just put that 0.5, and then in next 10-15 years it will again automatically, gradually it will become 10 units, 20 units, 30 units. At one point you'll realize that, oh, I've been hearing that it's all about Krishna. I will give my 100%. Then Your 100% giving to Krishna is going to be so different than my 100% giving to Krishna from where I stand. And then our definitions of what I have given 100% is very subjective, right? What do you mean you have given 100%? Then Prabhupada also gives this point that you have nothing to give, everything is anyways Krishna's. So these are all stages of conscious evolvement. It's the growth of consciousness. These are not of actions that I physically try to do something and then I push my consciousness high. It doesn't work like that. So it has to be always dealing with one's own inner struggle, little bit by bit, and the 100% guaranteed growth is when we deal with ourselves only bit by bit. Krishna is unforgiving to those big jumps. And that we have seen in our own movement and organization. Those who have done gradually are still supporting the movement, still doing their own practices, and still the role models amidst the whole chaos and amidst the whole struggles. While those who just came and wanted to do momentary revolutions, they could not sustain. So whether you read Upanishads, you read Bhagavad Gita, or you read Srimad Bhagavatam, everywhere the principle of gradual progression is emphasized. At every step there must be yoga or a unification of mind, intelligence, your emotions, and then you take it to the next step. Not that I read one thing and I want to make it 100%, so I ignore everything else and push my intelligence thrust it over my mind and body. It's going to, then the yoga does not take place, right? The union of these three things. So you will not achieve the result. If there is no yoga, there is no result. One should just, if one wants to put a tattoo on the body, you put that. No yoga, no result. So every stage there has to be a unification of these three things. Take your time, build it up, take the next step. Take your time, build it up, go to the next step.
Thank you, Prabhu. I have deepened my understanding and my appreciation for Prabhupada's gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was incredibly, incredibly helpful. Really, that was a lot of things just clicked for me then. Is it okay if we just do two more? I know it's over and your
Yeah,
time.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, Bhima and then Nitai. Thank you.
Yeah, very quickly, on the point of Ananda Bihari's question is two things. One is to be grateful. I mean, everything comes to us, especially if you're a devotee actively pursuing Krishna or the understanding of Krishna. If you're actively pursuing, Krishna's pulling. He's paying attention. He's pulling. He's helping you along. So if he decides everything, that means everything that comes your way is Krishna's gift. But the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. And what he wants you to get to is to that Abhoy Charan stage where, I mean, Prabhupada had to walk away from a lot in the end because he was so absorbed in Krishna. He let go of a serious situation. And that's not called upon us to do. What's called upon us to do is to get to that point where we are seriously absorbed. And just a very quick example, while class was going on, I was walking the dogs out by the falls, and there's a pond, a holding pond, which is very beautiful because paintbrush and golden honeysuckle grows by the edge. And I was just looking out over, listening to class and looking out over it. And in the distance, about 30 yards away, two deer came out, a buck and a doe, like two lovers. And it was just beautiful. And I was looking around at how some of the flowers were growing up through the birch bark of a fallen birch tree. And, you know, that life was just burgeoning here. And I was like thinking, well, I was like, I have what a millionaire who stays awake at night staring at the ceiling. I have more treasure, and it's free, and it's given to me by Krishna. So at that precise moment before I thought that, I thought, oh, you know, I'm being deluded by the material energy, like the attraction of the material world. I shouldn't love the creation. I should love the creator. Oh, I can't enjoy this moment. And then I just said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Everything is here, and I'm in this situation right now. Thank God, listening to Bhagavatam class, But everything's happening because Krishna's arranging it and Krishna's doing it. And I'm just trying to gently follow along, hopefully. And so at that moment, I just said, this is all Krishna's creation. Every flower that's growing, those two deer in the distance, the relationship that these two deer have, this all comes from Krishna. And all of a sudden, Krishna was a part of everything that I was seeing. Not that I was having some great realization, but it was just like I turned a moment where I was like, oh, the material energy, it's so gorgeous. What's the difference between this beautiful nature or a beautiful woman? And, why can't I feast? Right. And so all those fears from my brahmachari days, comes rolling in to try to ruin the moment. But in that moment, like you said, Prabhu, 2 minutes, just sit still for 2 minutes and realize that Krishna is there with you, and that you're grateful for what he's given you, like your son, your daughter, your wife, and all the struggles and challenges that you have to go through as a family man and as a businessman. All those struggles you should be grateful for. And then just one thing is Ma Suchaha, don't fear. Krishna's got you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Okay, Narottam Nitai.
No, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for highlighting this fact, because I know this is highlighted, like you said, in many other places, that it's this gradual improvement. Um, but also, like this, I guess, to being the stick-to-ness to devotional service is also really important. Even if we're not making progress, especially in the beginning, I feel sometimes, but like just being present with the devotees and moving forward and trying to make progress in the best way possible. Just association that goes a long way. One comment I wanted to make in like the world perspective is that this is right. Like we all have to make our subjective like individual people. We all have to fly our own plane. Association really matters, but from a grand perspective, I see that with this whole like putting all the electronics and all the human, like everything people have written over many years and ages, putting it on the internet and on the cloud. I feel that there's a tricky part where it comes to like big libraries where like the information and things could be lost because of people that might want to bec- how can I say, like like extremely wealthy bankers that might want to save face or something. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because we all have to go through our subjective like how can I say, we all have to make progress individually, but I feel like as a collective, as a whole, like people in society, I feel there's a lot of books and things that people have written over history that's gonna get that are being lost or destroyed in trying to cover up for something, or to not take accountability for past historical things that have happened. Whether that be like what is it called, evolution, theory of evolution, etc. There's a gray area. So the reason I mentioned that, Prabhuji, is like, how can we just like be more like I don't know. Do you maybe that's a discussion for another day, but like I just feel that that it's a concern because as we're like kind of moving through, as approaching this golden age, so to speak, I feel that there's a lot of like Srila Prabhupada said if you use Krishna consciousness properly, we can shave our beard properly. If not, we'll cut ourselves. So I don't know. My thoughts are all over the place. I was a little bit worried about what's going to happen in the future because if we lose historical evidences of what has happened through our history and what people have thought, then it's like
This is
do
why
we try?
Prabhupada said books are the basis, Prabhu.
Yeah, yeah.
Books are the basis. Actually, I used to be very, very, I don't mean to interject, but right on your point. Like, what happens when this knowledge gets lost? In 1980, not 1984, Fahrenheit 451, the Future Society banned all books. So a group of people who could, of which I know that we have in the movement, memorized the books and would walk around narrating the book as they have memorized it, because all books were banned, and all Fahrenheit 451 is when paper burns, I guess. So Prabhupada, right? And so many other great souls within this movement and within other sampradayas, you see that it's actually possible for the mind and to memorize these things. And then more importantly, Acharya, that we actually, I'm going to use we lightly, that a few great souls emulate and become the book, by their actions. The Bhagavatam is, after all, the story of God, and our lives, after all, are a story as well. And that if our story follows in the footsteps, not just externally by having a shaved head and wearing a dhoti and et cetera, but internally by showing, by spreading love of God, the wonderful variety that we have presented to us in these Bhagavatam. So I just wanted to say that this has been thought of before and feared before. What do we do when knowledge is lost? So I'll just hand that question that you had over to Prabhu, Jagannath Priya.
So because we are over time, I think there was this comment, and it's a very interesting question, and I have a perspective on this, but it'll take about 5-10 minutes. So it's better we discuss it next time. Whenever I'm giving the class, I think my actual schedule is going to be next week or so. Make sure that you remind me this. We will deal with this, and how the Shastra itself has a perspective on this itself. Okay.
Jai, thank you so much, Jagannath Priya, for giving class. It was so incredibly inspirational, and I think everybody else feels that way. Adi, can you please say the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to send us off into Sunday?
You're asking me to chant?
I am, yeah. The kids I don't think are on the call, so I think that would be nice.
We'll all be kids on the call.
All right, Bhima, chant with us. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Everybody,
Hare,
let's do it.
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai. Thank you all for coming to Srimad
Thank you very
Bhagavatam
much. Hare
class.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Let's keep Krishna in the center.